You see too much, don't you? You notice what others ignore, small lies, subtle energies, the space between words, and sometimes you wish you could unsee it. But clarity is not a curse. It's a test of mastery. There's a strange kind of fatigue that follows people who see the world clearly, not the tiredness of the body, but of the mind that never stops decoding reality. While others drift on the surface, you live in permanent high definition. Every contradiction, every hidden intention, every ripple of emotion amplified. That kind of perception can feel like too much awareness for one lifetime. Psychologically, it's the burden of hyperconscious minds, a cognitive style where empathy, logic and intuition overlap. Neuroscience calls it integrative perception. When your prefrontal cortex and limbic system refuse to shut up, you process data and emotion at once, turning every experience into meaning. Beautiful, yes. Exhausting, always. But here's the secret that most of the too aware forget. Seeing reality doesn't mean you must absorb it all. Clarity is not about carrying the world's pain. It's about understanding it precisely enough to choose what deserves your energy. So if you're constantly thinking, analyzing, feeling everything, pause right now. Ask yourself, are you thinking to solve or thinking to suffer? Modern psychology explains that awareness without direction becomes rumination. Your brain runs loops trying to find patterns even in chaos. That's why people who think deeply often spiral. The intellect turns inward and eats itself. But when awareness is guided by purpose, the same mind becomes a tool of creation. The universe is mathematical. It responds not to wishful thinking, but to the frequency of focus. Every thought is an electrical command. Every emotion, a signal that tunes your personal field. When you understand that, consciousness stops being abstract spirituality and becomes applied physics. Tesla knew it. Einstein whispered it. Amit Goswami mapped it. Reality is participatory. You are not a passive observer. You're a creative variable in the equation. So what happens when a clear mind stops fearing its own power and starts using it consciously? It becomes the rarest kind of intelligence, emotional precision. The capacity to feel without drowning, to sense pain yet stay rooted in action, to understand that sadness is a message, not a residence. Psychology calls this metacognitive regulation, the ability to observe thought without identifying with it. Spiritual teachers call it presence. They're talking about the same neural mechanism. Awareness returning to command center. People who see the world too clearly often fall into a trap, confusing depth with despair. But despair is just depth without direction. Once you decide to aim your clarity towards solutions, your perception becomes a force field. Problems stop being walls. They become coordinates. When you meet challenge, don't collapse into it. Breathe, observe, calculate, respond. Every obstacle is an equation waiting for your consciousness to solve. Energy moves in proportion to intention. You attract not what you deserve, but what you match. That's not mysticism, it's physics in motion. The universe mirrors coherence. If you vibrate in fear, it amplifies uncertainty. If you vibrate in purpose, it organizes coincidences. It's symmetry, not superstition. So the question isn't, why do I feel so much? It's, what am I going to build with everything I feel? Seeing the world too clearly is an invitation to maturity, to stop dramatizing awareness and start engineering it, to move from analysis to synthesis, from mental noise to conscious design. Because clarity without courage becomes paralysis, but clarity with action becomes transformation. The mind that sees too much is not doomed, it's destined. When you focus on what you can influence, the universe aligns the rest. Not instantly, not magically, but mathematically. Inputs, outputs, feedback loops. It's all data of the soul. You are both scientist and experiment, observer and participant. So don't shrink your perception to fit a comfortable narrative. Expand your competence to match your perception. Feel deeply, but steer wisely. Observe reality, but remember you're also shaping it. That's the true psychology of seeing the world too clearly. Not drowning in awareness, but mastering it. Because when awareness stops being a wound, it becomes your superpower. Clarity is beautiful until it isolates you. Because when you see too clearly, you stop belonging to illusions. And illusions are what most people call home. There's a strange loneliness that follows those who think too deeply. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like an observer, watching a world trapped in noise while your mind craves silence. It's not arrogance, it's pattern recognition. When you perceive more variables than others, your system simply can't unsee the inconsistencies. Psychologically, this is what researchers call cognitive empathy overload. Your mirror neurons fire too often. You feel others' emotions before they even name them. And because your brain is built for connection, you start absorbing what doesn't belong to you. That's the first cost of clarity, emotional contamination. You keep solving problems that aren't yours. But there's another cost, the social one. Deep minds don't bond through small talk. They bond through meaning. Yet meaning is slow, and the modern world worships speed. So while the masses scroll, the aware pause. And in that pause, they fall out of rhythm with the herd. You start asking questions that others avoid, and that's when belonging becomes a battlefield. Psychologically, humans fear what challenges their cognitive equilibrium. When you question the obvious, people defend the illusion, not because they hate you, but because they're protecting their mental comfort zone. The clear mind triggers discomfort, and discomfort breeds distance. That's why the most awakened often appear cold or detached. They're not detached, they're conserving bandwidth. They've learned that pouring energy into the wrong frequency only amplifies noise. But isolation isn't the goal of awareness. Integration is. A conscious mind that rejects the world becomes as blind as one that never questioned it. The real mastery is seeing the chaos and still choosing compassion. That's where awareness turns into leadership. So how do you belong to a world that doesn't think like you? Without shrinking your mind to fit in? Start by recognizing that solitude is not punishment. It's recalibration. When you spend time alone, your brain's default mode network reorganizes itself. It processes emotional residue, rebalances the nervous system, and strengthens intuition. That's why insights come in silence. Your neural field finally gets bandwidth to integrate data. From a neuroscience perspective, your higher self isn't mystical. It's the synchronization between prefrontal, focus, and heart coherence. When they align, your physiology enters gamma resonance, a state of high-order clarity. That's when intuition becomes measurable, a flash of pattern recognition across brain regions. It feels spiritual because it's complete. So solitude is not exile, it's the lab of consciousness. The cost of clarity only becomes pain when you mistake it for rejection. In truth, it's preparation, the mind stretching to handle a bigger field of data and responsibility. And what do you do once that calibration ends? When you're ready to step back into the world, you stop trying to belong and start trying to contribute. Because the deep mind doesn't need validation. It needs direction. Once you anchor in purpose, connection happens naturally. People sense coherence the way animals sense calm, unconsciously but unmistakably. When clarity becomes compassion, you magnetize tribe. Not by pleasing, but by resonating. The ones meant to walk with you will feel the signal and approach. No chasing, no convincing. Just frequency meeting frequency. Still, awareness demands humility. Even the most awakened can become blind when they start worshipping their own vision. That's why balance is everything. Too much introspection becomes paralysis. Too much action, chaos. The intelligent mind learns to oscillate. Think, feel, act, release. That's emotional homeostasis, presence in motion. Maybe the real purpose of clarity isn't to escape the world, but to illuminate it. To turn awareness into architecture. To transform perception into progress. Because the world doesn't need more people who see everything. It needs more people who see clearly and still choose to build. Clarity means nothing if it never becomes creation. Because seeing the truth isn't the end, it's the invitation. Awareness by itself is a mirror. It reflects the world, but reflection without action becomes stagnation. You've met those people who know everything, right? Who can diagnose every system, predict every failure, but never move. That's analysis paralysis, a loop in the frontal cortex where understanding replaces experience. The mind thinks clarity equals safety, but biologically, the brain isn't designed for clarity. It's designed for efficiency. It filters, simplifies, edits reality to conserve energy. So every time you choose to see more, you're hacking your own neurobiology. You're demanding more glucose, more focus, more courage. That's why consciousness feels heavy sometimes. It's metabolic. It costs you energy to stay awake. But here's the paradox. The more energy awareness costs you, the more energy it gives back, if you learn to channel it. The key is direction. Awareness becomes power when it's organized, when perception finds a purpose. Think of your mind as an optical lens. Clarity alone just magnifies the chaos. Focus turns it into a beam. And when a beam is precise enough, it cuts through anything. That's what laser thinking is. Concentrated consciousness. Neuroscience calls it coherent attention states. Gamma waves synchronized across brain regions, body relaxed, heart stable. In this state, every thought feels aligned. The body becomes an antenna. Intuition sharpens into accuracy. You've felt that before. Those moments when time slows down, when answers arrive faster than questions. That's coherence in motion. You're not manifesting magic. You're operating in resonance. So why don't most people live like that? Because clarity demands confrontation, and confrontation burns comfort. Awareness exposes the lies we tell ourselves to keep life predictable, the job we've outgrown, the relationship that only survives in nostalgia, the identity built from what others needed, not who we are. When you see too clearly, you can't unsee. And that's where the transformation begins. Not when you understand, but when you act on what you see. That's why true clarity always brings loss before liberation. You lose illusions, habits, attachments, and masks. You lose noise and gain signal. You lose company and gain authenticity. Psychology calls this process identity disintegration, the collapse of outdated neural narratives. It's uncomfortable, but necessary. The brain literally rewires, pruning synapses that no longer match your new perception. You become neurologically new. But here's the mercy. What clarity takes away in comfort, it gives back in power. Once your perception stabilizes in truth, emotional intelligence skyrockets. You stop reacting, you start responding, because you no longer confuse someone else's chaos with your own. That's when decision-making becomes almost effortless. You feel the path before logic catches up. And neuroscience backs this up. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex fires milliseconds before conscious reasoning. Intuition isn't guessing, it's data compression at light speed. So yes, clarity is expensive, but it's also profitable. The clearer you become, the less energy you waste fighting reality. You stop negotiating with noise. Imagine what happens when every unit of focus goes to what matters. That's exponential return on consciousness. That's creation. So how do you turn that awareness into architecture? Step 1. Observation, intention. Don't just notice, name. Labeling emotions activates the left prefrontal lobe, reducing amygdala reactivity by up to 40%. That means peace. You regain control. Step 2. Intention, structure. Energy without direction leaks. That's why your awareness needs systems. Rituals, habits, boundaries, every morning routine, every list. Every boundary is a neural groove. Repetition coding resilience. Step 3. Structure, flow. Once systems are in place, loosen them. Let life breathe through your discipline. Flow isn't chaos, it's structured freedom. It's jazz, not noise. It's Einstein's desk, messy on the surface, mathematically precise underneath. Step 4. Flow, service. Awareness that doesn't serve becomes vanity. Power is clean only when it circulates. Teach, create, inspire, build. Contribute your clarity. That's how consciousness sustains itself, by sharing its signal. The clearer you become, the quieter your world gets. Not because fewer people understand you, but because you stop explaining yourself. That's when presence becomes your message. You walk into a room and the air changes. Coherence is contagious. Leadership isn't loud, it's frequency. And suddenly, your clarity starts shaping environments. Teams align faster. Conversations deepen. Love becomes calmer, not colder. Because people feel safe near someone who sees clearly but judges slowly. That's the paradox of awakened intelligence. You get sharper yet softer. More discerning yet more compassionate. You realize that judgment and empathy are two sides of the same neural circuit. One observes, the other understands. Balance both, and you stop projecting pain. Every generation has a few who can see through the fog, who understand that the mind is both telescope and mirror. They don't just watch reality, they sculpt it. They know thought is architecture and emotion is electricity. They move through life like engineers of meaning. If that's you, don't apologize for your clarity. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. The world needs your perception, but it needs it in motion. So build something, a work, a movement, a story, anything that turns understanding into expansion. Because awareness is sacred, but creation is divine. One awakens you, the other awakens the world. And maybe that's the purpose of seeing so clearly. Not to escape reality, but to rewrite it. If this spoke to you, it's because you already feel it. The quiet strength of a mind that won't go back to sleep. So keep watching. The next chapter isn't about the pain of seeing, it's about how to build the world you see. Subscribe, stay close, and keep walking with us. This is Human Wave, where awakened minds rise into a life of wholeness and fulfillment.